From Washington, this is VOA News. President Obama says risk of U.S. Ebola outbreak very low. Russian and Ukrainian presidents talk of peace. I'm Ray Kouguell reporting from Washington. President Obama says the risk of a widespread Ebola outbreak in the United States is, in his words, very, very low if all the proper protections are taken. Speaking at a cabinet meeting on Ebola Wednesday, Mr. Obama called for an emergency federal medical team to be immediately deployed to any hospital where an Ebola case is diagnosed to ensure that those preventative steps are taken. He stressed the need for a more robust global response to Ebola and more aid to the three countries that are at the epicenter of the outbreak, Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Mr. Obama held an emergency cabinet meeting after news that the second U.S. health worker infected with the Ebola virus took a flight within the United States a day before developing symptoms. The nurse contracted the virus at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital while treating Thomas Eric Duncan, the Liberian national who became the first person in the United States to die of the virus last week. Liberia's transport minister placed herself in quarantine following reports that her driver died of Ebola. Angela Cassell-Bush is not infected with the Ebola virus, but decided to voluntarily isolate herself. The U.S. Embassy in Ethiopia is warning of a possible terrorist attack in a part of the capital, Addis Ababa. The embassy says it received reports that Somali militant group al-Shabaab intends to target Bole, a southeastern district of the city. The location of the alleged possible attack is not known, but the embassy warns that restaurants, hotels, places of worship, supermarkets, and shopping malls should all be avoided until further notice. This is VOA News. The Pentagon says U.S. warplanes are bombing targets in the Syrian border town of Kobani in support of the town's Kurdish defenders, while warning that Islamic State extremists could seize the embattled enclave. U.S. General John Allen says the strikes are aimed at giving the town's defenders time to organize. U.S. analysts believe the strikes have killed several hundred IS fighters. Islamic State militants continue, meanwhile, to unleash a deadly wave of multiple car bombings in the Iraqi capital, Baghdad, and across other parts of the country of Iraq, in an apparent bid to destabilize its faltering military forces. Edward Uranian has details.
Following another round of bloody attacks Tuesday, which included at least 25 deaths in the Baghdad district of Kazamiya, Iraqi officials are scrambling to reassure residents that the capital remains secure. Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi told a graduating class of military cadets in the town of Nasiriyah Wednesday that security in Baghdad remains tight.
لإخواننا ولأهلنا في بغداد ولجميع العراقيين في كل مكان.
He says the capital is being protected by its sons and by its armed forces and that it is secure. Edward Uranian for VOA News, Cairo.
A suicide bombing in Pakistan killed 7 people in the Khyber tribal region along the Afghan border. There's been no claim of responsibility. The Kremlin says Russia's President Vladimir Putin discussed options for a peaceful settlement in eastern Ukraine with his Ukrainian counterpart ahead of extended talks later this week in Milan. The telephone call with President Petro Poroshenko also addressed an ongoing natural gas dispute between the two countries that overlaps with the ongoing conflict along their shared border. A Hong Kong pro-democracy protester went before the media to show bruises, he says, were sustained when he was beaten by police on Wednesday. The incident occurred during a police attempt to clear demonstrators blocking an underpass on a key road near Hong Kong government headquarters. Heavy snow and avalanches in Nepal's Himalayas have killed at least 12 people, including 8 foreign hikers. Government officials say 14 hikers have been rescued, but that more fatalities are feared as bad weather continues. U.S. stocks fell sharply during Wednesday's trading, with the Dow Jones Industrials off by more than 450 points before recovering some ground by the close. The Dow ended the day down about 1%, but had fallen almost 3% earlier. The stock market decline is the latest in a series of losses that have erased most U.S. stock market gains for the year. Investors are worried by slowing growth in Europe and Asia and disappointing data on U.S. retail sales and manufacturing. I'm Ray Kouguell in Washington.
That's the latest world news from VOA.